Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. This week, I'm stoked to share my chat with Adam, Woody, Woodford, and Fabian Lomas from London hardcore band Polar. Polar will release Everywhere Everything this Friday, January 13th on Rising Empire Records. It's the first must-listen-to record of the new year, so don't miss it. Listening to Polar's discography was pure joy and a reminder of why I love heavy music, so if you haven't checked out this band, make sure you dive in. The guys talk about growing up at the peak of the nu metal era and how Chino inspired a love of heavy music, working with the label in Europe versus the States, and how COVID impacted writing new music. This was an absolutely delightful chat, and if you join the mailing list this week, I have some behind-the-scenes information about this conversation and how it changed the podcast going forward. A link to the Substack page will be in the show notes. Enjoy getting to know Woody and Fabian from Polar.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. I'm good.
Thank you very much for the interview. I don't know if a couple of the other lads are going to come on as well.
Oh, okay.
I'll drop them a quick message. But how you doing?
Good. How are things over there?
Yeah, good. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, it's obviously like coming to the end of the year now, so everything's kind of really bustling. And I think everything's trying to balance between the living crisis of financially and actually trying to do Christmas at the same time.
Right.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy some days, and then it's other days I think people are realizing they've got no money to spend.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's okay. It's I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of wishing most of the end of the year away because I wanted to release our record for about 2 years. So this getting this last bit of December out of the way to get to January is quite a blessing. So
Yeah.
But yeah, very nice to meet you. I'm Woody. So
yeah. Rad. I been getting to discover your band over the last few weeks. It's been awesome. I was listening to No Cure, No Savior today, and it's one of those records where I was like, yeah, this is why I like heavy music, like this sound, and this is why I like heavy music, and I love having those experiences still. So
thank you. No, yeah, I can completely relate. It's like hearing something and then totally absorbing it. Yeah, so no, I really appreciate your kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Hello.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
You're not.
Good, yeah, not so bad.
You're not on the video yet, mate.
Am I not? Okay.
No, you're just your phone name. Oh, there you are.
There we go. Hang
Beautiful.
on. 2 secs. How is everybody? Everyone okay?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Good.
We were just starting, so
Yeah, sorry if I'm a little bit late.
No, it's all good.
worries.
It's all good. I just said I've been loving the band and getting to discover it. It's great.
Oh, that's good. That's really good to hear, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, doing the podcast has opened me up, and like working with a bunch of Rising Empire bands, like I get to discover the European scene, and it's fucking phenomenal.
Sure.
So it's great.
Yeah. How are you finding it? Like, how does it differ? Have you noticed any big differences?
I think it's starting to be less different, but I feel like, and who did I talk to recently? I talked to someone recently who told me that I was full of shit. But I found like European bands, there's a lot more willingness to experiment and wear like influences on their sleeves and not be so like stuck to like, this is metalcore and everything sounds like Killswitch and Underoath, right? So like,
yeah.
So
two great bands, but I guess you do need some diversity at least.
Right. Yeah. It's like City and Color. No, The City Is Ours, where I was like, it's like metalcore Backstreet Boys, and it's fucking great.
Mikey can sing. Yeah, that boy can sing. He can hold a note. They just did a Christmas cover of a very famous English song, which Fab will know, E17, Stay Now, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Just done that. That did make me chuckle quite a lot. But yeah, they can do it. They are.
Yeah.
That's a very good analogy. That is a very good analogy.
Yeah, I told that to them and they were like, I guess that's a compliment. And I was like, it is.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but I mean it well. So what got each of you into music?
God, what got us into music at a young age? You mean?
Yeah,
Or when, yeah.
Deftones for me. Actually, me and Fab are the same age in the band, and there's a couple of probably mutual bands. There was a band called Vision of Disorder.
Yeah, great band.
You know, excusing the pun, that had an impact on our like musical kind of direction. But yeah, Deftones was a massive one for me. I'm going to show my age now. I saw Deftones in 1998, I think, in London. I just heard My Own Summer, which had absolutely blown my mind, coming out of a background of listening to a lot of Limp Bizkit and Korn and being like heavily soaked in a new metal, because that all came out when I was young. Like I was in that era. I lived
in the UK. New metal was really big. Like it exploded. You know, in that, what sort of era there would, like,
yeah, 98, 99, that early 2000 scene. You know, the big scene that recently got documented on that Woodstock 99 documentary. We were just getting those bands over here and that was exploding. But Deftones were the band that, for me, had a little bit more angst to them in a more aggressive manner, more violent manner. I found some of the other new metal was good. It was angry music, but it was like to see Chino screaming was like, this guy means the words that are coming out of his mouth. Like this, he's feeling this, like he's really feeling every emotion for his body while he's doing it. And I think that was a big game change for me. I saw that. I also saw his trousers hanging around his ankles, so I didn't wear my trousers around my ankles for about a good 10 years, which I will actually openly say on interviews now. I did do that, my ass out of my trousers, and I thought I was cool, you know, waddling around like a penguin. But the music, it grabbed me, and that threw me towards bands like Glassjaw, and that more post-hardcore kind of scene like Quicksand, and that exposed me to that genre, and that's the genre I guess we kind of like found mutual agreements is on where we wanted to take Polar, or start Polar, and being that more hardcore kind of, the hardcore metal edge more than the metal edge was more where I grew up in, and I think that's probably the same for Fab, really. Like,
yeah, I mean, a lot of those bands you mentioned were much the same. I mean, I think when I was probably a bit younger, Nirvana was probably an early one. You know, that brought me into that. Machine Head, obviously, like that was probably the first heavy metal band that I really started listening to at a really young age. It was Machine Head, and then like you said, moved on. Deftones, the new metal era, definitely I got into that. Ugly Kid Joe, I remember that band being
Ugly Kid Joe, Life of Agony.
Work. Yeah, man, I walked to school listening to America's Most Hated, or whatever it was called.
Yeah, Biohazard with one headphone in my ear in school.
And the cat's in the cradle and the silver.
What banger? It's a banger.
It's incredible.
This whole interview isn't going to be about our album. It's just about mine and Fab's musical.
Good start. Yeah.
But yeah, they all had impact. Like, I think those are the moments where, I guess, for the age I was, they were the most impressionable times where I looked at artists and bands as a fan and sort of the yearning to become a musician, you know, to be on that stage. That was the moments that really kind of grabbed me by the ears and said, like, this, you want to do this. And I hear it in so many interviews as well, because I think part of that was then you got exposed to the whole show. You wanted to know what's going on backstage. I can tell you what, it's a lot of guys on their phones looking at mindless stuff, but in your head you have these like really big visions of it all, and the idea of like performing an angry and quite aggressive song in an emotional way, and seeing people react to it. Those were the moments in those bands that I saw that was like, wow, this is mad. This band have managed to reach this many people, and they all feel the same way. And and I think Fab's right. Nirvana were a big one that started that off like massively.
Yeah, so I think those bands mixed with, at that time, I think my brother started playing guitar, and obviously being younger than him, I was like, oh, I want to play guitar too, and then that was it. I just picked up the guitar, and then just carried it on going, and mixed with those bands that we mentioned there. That's what was the imaginative juices. They were the inspirations, the origins,
Yeah. Where did you both grow up?
South London.
London.
Yeah. So we're both like in the countryside of London, in the suburbs. Fab's a bit closer to central than I am. I'm about 45 minutes into central London where I am. I think Fab's about 25.
Nice.
But yeah, we grew up being in London. That was the big city where everything happened, and luckily that's where all the shows were happening. Yeah. And that's to become immersed in all the scenes, all the different scenes we're building. You can see them, and the ones that you kind of sort of see today. So yeah, like London has a lot to say thanks for what we've been exposed for musically anyway.
It was the place to go, obviously, for any of the larger bands that you wanted to watch. Like me and Woody would obviously go out and watch, go to local venues and watch bands in those sorts of areas. But if you wanted to watch some of the big sort of international bands, London was on the doorstep. Brixton, Astoria, those sorts of venues. It was rife for it, really. You could go to the city and there'd be probably 8 or 9 shows on in the same city that you could, you had such a pick every weekend, every night, really.
Yeah. Was there a good like underground hardcore scene?
Oh yeah, it grew.
Yeah.
And that's, at the time, we kind of came out in 2009. That hardcore scene had flourished, and one band had laid the seed and basically grown the plant that we all sort of became stems from, and that was Gallows. And Gallows came out, and that just blew the hardcore scene into this much more massively not commercial, but like much more exposed market. Suddenly these underground hardcore shows that we were all going to when we were younger, like I played a lot in bands growing up, and I'm sure most of the guys in all the band have done it, is play loads of shows in scout huts, school halls, back rooms of pubs. I mean, we did back rooms of pubs with Polar, but you everywhere that shouldn't be a venue, we've probably played in, and that's where it starts. And suddenly there was this in like between 2007 and 2009, there was a real surgence of like hardcore, like the real kind of spitty, aggressive, very fast, like very like energetic punk had kind of resurged again. You suddenly like from like over the seas, we were getting bands like Cancer Bats and Trash Talk, and then like over here we were doing Gallows, and Gallows literally, they just kind of came out at the right time with the right sound. They looked perfect for it, and it blew that kind of underground scene to the overground. And we ended up doing a tour with Gallows, our first tours. And to see a band go from playing like there was a venue in London in Camden called the Underworld. You see them playing that to like 600 kids. And then the next thing you know, they're on like the main stage at Download to 20,000 plus. But yeah, there was a big underground scene, and there still is now. But I guess hardcore is such a multi-genred word anyway,
right?
Like, like you could have post-hardcore, you've got your straight up old school kind of hardcore. There's a big scene in London for that, where it's just literally kind of very small shows still, very much a collective, community and the shows are always very well attended, and it's very beatdown orientated. A lot of that stuff is, it's aggressive and it's just beat down. You don't hear much singing in those moments, but it has a movement, it has a following, and that following has been going for quite a long time. Then you can kind of get more into your like post-hardcore kind of scenes, and they're generally a lot bigger. Like some of those bands have kind of really blown up, like Touche Amore, like are much bigger. More, we toured with bands like Theta back in the day, and they like were the ones that stepped up from playing like the very much basement stuff to they were like the venues, and then then it goes into the metalcore scene really. Like, so the different tiers have all got different things going on, they all kind of bleed into each other, but it's just such a big, like the word hardcore has so many tentacles. It really does.
I remember my teen years going to hardcore shows in church basements, and there's like 30 people, and then like Turnstile, I'm in Washington DC, and Turnstile just played like one of the biggest venues here, and you're just like, well, fuck, like that's great.
When this, like its popularity like has increased. I think there's more people into hardcore nowadays. I generally think people, it just almost like felt one day like that's like the penny dropped. So everyone was like, boom, all right, I get it, like it makes sense. And then Turnstile played to 20,000 people. It's like suddenly, oh wow, like this, this all makes sense. But like, it's an ever developing genre of music, and that's what excites us. I guess what it excites myself to be doing is it doesn't suddenly, for the first time, it doesn't feel like it's got boundaries and doors to it anymore, like, and walls. It feels like it can be done in loads of different things can be done, and you can apply different things to that sound, and it doesn't feel like it has to just stay traditional. But I like the traditional stuff, that's the grassroots of it, without bands like Agnostic Front, like H2O, these Gorilla Biscuits, like the real old school, like straight up hardcore stuff, like Minor Threat. They were the guys that kicked it off. They lit the fuse that has been slowly running to explode to what we are living through now. So you've got to like appreciate and completely like value your roots of it. But it's just it's gone like everywhere now, It's not unheard of for a hardcore band to put electronics in their music.
Let's talk about the band. How did Polar get started?
Well,
we were a mix of we essentially we were all local to each other, so we inevitably were in sort of different bands from around the scene. Bands came, bands went, people were in and out of bands all the time, and essentially like my band at the time and Woody's band, we played a show together, hung out a little bit, and ultimately Woody asked me to join the band, and it was actually under a different name to Polar, but that was, I guess, the first time I had met or spent time with Woody to the extent of being in a band with him. And then we just decided with a few other friends the timing was right to start this band, and that was it. We just wrote 5 songs, wrote an EP.
We wanted to go on tour, I think.
And that was it,
None of the local bands we played in or played with had ever toured. Like, the idea of touring was this big, like, wow, like, if your band was going to do that, you were then deemed as this, well, they've been on tour, like, and I think we wrote enough songs to have a set together so we could do one tour and just be like, we did a tour, and then we did these 5 songs. And then what cocked up the small plan of being like, oh, we did a tour, we've done 5 songs, is that we got picked up by a record label called Wolf Your Door Records, back through MySpace, if I remember correctly. Like, yeah, so put some tracks up on a player, and people had got in contact, and we had gone through the ups and downs of playing some turbulent shows, promoters that weren't promoters and all sorts. And and the record label came along, and the one tour with 5 songs has now led to 13 years and 5 albums. So doing well off that one tour. But yeah, we just we were like a local band that wanted to do more than just play the local shows, which were always good. They were well attended, but they were your friends. It was a safety net. It felt it was good. They were great. They were great shows. They were good fun, but they were always well attended because you knew your mates were all into it. They were all in that scene. You know, a lot of them have grown up and moved away from it and gone to different areas of their lives. But at that period in time, like, everyone was into it. So the shows were always really good, but you were just always kind of like playing to your mates, and it was something like, wonder what it'd be like to play in Glasgow. Wonder what it'd be like to play would people come if we played hit? And so we just started hitting people up and being like, we were doing gig swaps. We were meeting other bands and being like, cool, we've got these 5 songs, this is what we sound like. You do some shows at your town, do you want to come and play us? And it was just a lot of that. Early part of like doing Polar was just being online and talking to another band and being like, your stuff's cool, do you want to play a gig? Like, and then you can play where we're playing and we can play where you're in. We just kind of started doing that, and we did that for quite a long time. But there was no real deep meaning to the name either. We literally sat in a car park and we worked a name that would look good on a t-shirt. There you go. That's it. Like, hot off the press. It was not just a t-shirt. It was just our old band that we started together, Fab and I, that was called the Comanche Cypher, which is an absolute mouthful. To say that in a really noisy, crowded pub or club to someone, you had to say it about 4 times, and they still didn't get it. By the end, they were just agreeing. And I think when we changed members and we stepped up and we formed the band that became, it was like the main thing for us was like the name. It had to be something that just looked bold. Something simple. Bold and simple and stood out. Would it look good in these 4? In a battery, early days when you're daydreaming, which luckily did become kind of real, or become real. It's like backdrops to, how would it always look on all the different formats? And we just like the way the word Polar looked. And it's a cool word, I think. It's the only problem, I guess, when we look back on that as a bit of a reflection, it's a very used word, which makes it incredibly hard to use Google sometimes. But I think I still stand by it. It has been a very strong choice to go with. And then, as they say, the rest is history. We've been writing as we go along, really.
Yeah. What led you guys to A Rising Empire from Prosthetic?
What album was that from? No Cure, and then into Nova. That was.
I think it's our connection, like the strength that we have in Germany and in Europe, like Germany especially, but across Europe and the UK is like. I think we both have a stronghold there. And to sign to a label from there was I guess sort of the earliest connection to it. And you just took a look at their roster that they had, and it was like, okay, great. Well, we're joining a good bunch here. Like their dialogue, like the way they came across, and it was all that kind of thing. And you just sort of feel it, I guess, and it's been great. There's no word.
It's it felt like. It felt like it was good to take the band to a label that was closer to home. Like Prosthetic were great and we had a good relationship. It was strong, but it was always very quiet, sometimes hard because of time differences and the way that we were working. And that just put strain sometimes. It's like nobody was doing anything wrong, but it's like you're trying to sort of move something that is in time zone. So, and Horizon are an amazing home, and it was just like, it felt naturally the strongest way to move the band to Horizon, and to a really good, strong family orientated kind of label. You know, they take the bands that they care about with them. So and it's just it's a good place. It just feels right. And I think you've got to, if you want to excel in the industry, you've just got to surround yourself with the people that you think you're fully trusting with, you know, and Horizon you fully trust, you know, everything you do with. So
The record is out January 13th, everywhere, everything. Talk to me about how COVID impacted this release. You said you've been wanting to release this for 2 years. I mean, COVID
how long
fucked
you got
everything.
me?
But,
I mean, is there a short way of explaining this?
Well, I mean, so I guess the way it started for us was we were mid-tour, playing, you know, our Nova sort of campaign across Europe, and it was all going great. And then obviously, bang! That's literally when the outbreak, the pandemic started. We were on tour with a bunch of international bands who all needed to fly back pretty instantaneously to America, Australia, etc. So that was literally the end. Suddenly we're now at home and we're like, right, well, we don't know what's going to happen. We better start writing. Well, of course, the UK went into lockdown like much of the world, and we found ourselves just having to record individually in our homes. And no matter if it was like, you know, a guitar line or a full song or half a song, it was getting pinged about a Zoom meeting about bits and bobs. And it was, trying to dissect an album of that sort of depth is a long process on Zoom. Not seeing each other, was just like, this is hard work. Like, you know what I mean? Just we would have Zoom calls about a particular note in a guitar line that just, we might want to change, and people weren't agreeing. So it's like, well, let's have a chat. And it was a whole call about. It was necessary, but it was like, you know, after a while, it was a lot. And I don't know. We just ploughed on. We ploughed through. Certain lockdown restrictions started lifting. And then we could meet up and start demoing together, and formulating these ideas into more of an agreed form, structure. And then I guess we ploughed on. I think that was that, wasn't it, Wood?
Well, it was tough. It was real tough. I think if you look on it in reflection, like, we're super proud of this record. It will be our strongest work we've ever done. Because we had the time to do it, I imagine, over 2 years. But you don't really understand why you're living this. Like, we've taken a process of making an album in a format that we've never done before, in probably one of the hardest things that the human race was going through, with a brand new lineup. And when you write albums, the understanding that I've definitely taken away from this is you need that chemistry. Like, and that chemistry has to kind of be woven in to make the process like fluid, make the songs ideas flourish, like grow, and suddenly you didn't have that fluidness, so it did create this real kind of stress on your mental health, because you never knew like how someone was reacting. Like, if you'd put the five of us at the time in the room together on some of the things that we really kind of struggled with, they would have been ironed out in seconds. Like, seconds. Like, you know, that idea would have been done, like, dotted the I's, crossed the T, let's go on to the next thing. But because of the stress we were like having to develop the ideas in the formats we were using, like, those small things that could be cleared up in seconds took months. Really? Like, sometimes weeks. Like, there were points where I think everyone just kind of like got so frustrated in it, like that it was like nobody really knew what to say to each other. You were hitting a lot of brick walls on things sometimes that didn't necessarily need a brick wall. Like, or you were literally all agreeing on something, but because of the angles you're coming, it was like it was very hard to put those early structures together, and to not like become misconstrued in messages. When you're using things like WhatsApp as well, it's like, again, you forget the basic forms of communication if you're in a room with someone, because something can be so resolved so quick. But like, to read someone's WhatsApp, it's hard sometimes to gauge, do they like this idea? Have I just written a whole page of gibberish? It's like, but then you don't know on the other end someone's doing so. Life it was changing, so everyone's having to kind of adapt. So it wasn't always like the first thing someone was going to do. So as soon as we got the opportunity to be back together, we weren't allowed in people's houses, so you had to go in our garden. So we went to my garden. We were just and that's. We had to put the songs together, but to a degree I think we had to kind of put ourselves back together, because we'd had these big distances. Although we'd been very vocal and been very together, sometimes it's hard then all of a sudden to put these you're all in a group together. Like it was a real rebuild on both parts, and a real learning curve for everyone. So and it only made us a lot stronger in the end.
It gave us the ability to it forced us to have to meet up a lot in order to get this album written. But what it did do is that we could become real stringent. We could nitpick, and we'd be meeting up all the time. So we would, with a fine tooth comb, like go through these songs, go through the lyrics, go through the placements, the rhythms, is this, but probably more so than we've ever had the opportunity to do on any previous album. And I think that attention to detail, like, is in the end result. I think a lot of it has come through on the record itself, which I'm pleased about, and it makes it all worthwhile in the end, because, like you say, there were moments where it's like, my God, this is hell on earth. But now we're out the other side. It's like, okay, this feels good. Like, I like that.
Yeah,
we also like disappeared off social media for 2 years. Like, completely didn't say a word. Not a single, not a word to any. I mean, apart from the close people to us, like, it was like, I guess people thought we'd gone, like, just dissolved. In theory, we were actually working harder than ever to try and build what was aiming to be our biggest record while we were writing it, in probably the hardest situation. It was a very, very strange time to be alive, I think, for everyone, but we got through. We definitely got through.
Yeah. Are there any lyrical themes running through this record? There seems to be a lot of like religious imagery in some of the song titles.
You're actually the second person that said that.
I don't think it's not a conscious thing, because it's been on some of our previous records as well, or has it been highlighted to us at least? And I don't think it's like it's not a religious thing.
We just like the wording, strong imagery.
It brings a certain amount of imagery to it, for sure. I mean, coming back to like the writing, the messages in the songs, like you say before, I think we've, from when we talked about the band starting and how young, or the age we were when we were there, now with the age we are now, going 10 years later, we're sort of different people in a different time. And so this album is a snippet of us now, and so it's they're going to have different themes on it, and the lyrical content is going to be maybe somewhat a little bit deeper, because they're things that matter, and when we were younger we had probably a bit more of a carefree attitude, it was a bit more angst rather than anything, whereas now, and I like that about the band now, is that there's the opportunity to actually get something off your chest. You know what I mean? Because when a song is delivered with conviction and you mean it from the, it comes across different, it hits differently. And I think that's one thing I like about at least contributing to any sort of lyrics or any ideas, musical or anything, it's getting some stuff that you've got in your own life sort of off your chest a bit. Yeah. You've got the perfect forum. You're in a band. Jesus, right? That's what I'm going to sing about. This. Do you know what I mean? Like, some people it's political, some people it's really, So for us, or for me at least, I think it's somewhat personal.
I think with the themes of it was obviously a period in time. We, as Fab said, we obviously stopped this tour we were on and went straight into writing. And I guess the main focus in what I bring to the table is a lot of the lyrics and the concepts and the ideas. It was very hard not to write about a virus like that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that it was a go-to, isn't it? Like everything you are being shown and everything you're being exposed to and everything your consciousness is picking up is viruses for and it was you just kind of it's on the nose, isn't it? You're just like, I can't do that. So what we did is we explored. Well, what I did is I started walking around a lot of the woods where I used to walk as a teenager and as a kid, which brought a lot of nostalgic vibes back to me. And I kind of explored the relationship between people in what we were going through, like what different relationships, whether it be like nostalgic relationships where things, situations have changed, and they were changing, my friendship groups have all changed. Everything's changed. Well, those relationships have all were at one point very different to what they are now. And while we were going through that, I kind of really felt that. I felt that a lot. And it was like, I felt that was a real subject feeling. It was like I was really explaining the feeling that I had it wasn't just doom and gloom. There was lots of good things happening, but then there was other bad things happening, but they were all involving personal relationships and or relationships between people, the human connection. And it really kind of interested me, that human connection, the test that the human connection was going through, because we were built to be a species that socializes, and suddenly we're severed. That's gone. Your purpose on earth is now been severed at the core, and it was like that affects everything. That affects everything else. It's like a jolt in time, and that really spurred on a lot of the ideas and the feelings behind some of the songs, that human connection, whether good, bad, happy, sad. I was feeling it. We were all feeling it. We all had different connections to things that were going on, whether they were personal or worldly. It all kind of had a real deep rooted core to the human connection. So, and that was really, really effective.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song. One good word and I'm gone. Oh, as the story grows, the more I want. story grows, as the story grows. You can create something lasting and great, something passionate and real. And I'll bring in my own good feelings, I'll sing it with meaning. Let's just attack it and never look back. It's wild and fantastic. All together at full power, we're so much better. What's that word?